Hello, I'm Angeline Ong, and welcome to Beat the Street, the show that gives you all the tradable news and data you need to know ahead of the Wall Street Open. Coming up, the US economy in focus with inflation, retail sales, and consumer confidence on deck. Rates in focus as well. Is the European Central Bank going to stop or go? A major chips deal. Qualcomm is set to supply Apple with 5G chips until 2026. Now, good afternoon. I'm Angeline Ong, and a very warm welcome to you on this new edition of Beat the Street. Not long before Wall Street starts trading, this is how equity markets are looking ahead of a crucial week for investors. Just starting with Wall Street, this index, as it's known on the IG markets, we're seeing that the markets could potentially open higher. Let's take a look at the Tech 100 as well. As we count down to that US Open, it is also showing a similar picture. As you can see there on a wider term, longer term chart, rather, it has corrected slightly. Let's take a look at the daily chart for you, because this gives you a better indication of the climb and that correction, as you can see there in the summer. However, it has to be said, it has started creeping up since mid-August. Hitting that resistance point at around 15,568 before coming back off those levels again. But with more people coming back online after the summer holidays, we could see a very different picture as the week progresses. Also checking in on the volatility index, because this, in terms of historical terms, is still very, very low, as you can see there. Of course, all this could change given we are waiting for those readings, the inflation figure, retail sales, and of course consumer confidence as well, paired against what could be a pivotal interest rate decision from the European central banks. This coming as investors continue to track the pace of consumer price pressures in the resilient US economy. Now, just kicking off with the dollar as well. Dollar starting out the week having hit new 6-month highs on Friday, pulling up the US dollar basket here for you, because as you can see here, there's been a slow grind up there for this financial instrument. And there's been a lot of chatter about the US economy, which has been backed up by the US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. Speaking at the G20 meeting in New Delhi over the weekend, she said she's increasingly confident about the US economic performance. She said the US should be able to contain inflation without major damage to the job market, backing recent data which shows a steady slowdown in inflation and a fresh influx of job seekers. As I mentioned earlier, the key set pace for the week, inflation figures ahead of the Fed. CPI growth expected to accelerate to 3.6% in August year on year, after a 3.2% rise last month, an increase due to the recent rise in oil prices if we get that figure. Core CPI also forecast at 4.3% year on year after 4.7% in July. And of course, retail sales figures on Thursday hotly anticipated to rise by 0.2% in August on a monthly basis. Friday, industrial production figures seen falling by 0.5% year on year. Now, amid all this, Liz Deerking joins us all the way from Chicago. Liz is the co-host of Liz and Jenny show at Tasty Live, part of IG Group. Liz, there's so much economic data out there, but what else is going to drive markets this week?
Well, Angela, it's a big week this week for us as traders, because it is triple witching, which is when three things expire. You've got stock options, futures, and stock index options, which all expire today. Now, that actually leads, from a trader's perspective, into a lot of people unwinding their positions. So you'll see some volume, but very, very stable markets. Lots of people unwinding their positions. So I know there's lots of economic data coming out that could move the market. But as far as trading, that notoriously, it's a very kind of stable week where we'll see more action in just trading next week.
Also, a key thing that we are watching out for, of course, Apple and various earnings out as well from other retailers out in the US, and The exciting thing on the IPO market, I see that there's just been confirmation about this app, grocery app that we don't have here. Tell us a bit more about it.
You guys don't have Instacart?
We don't have Instacart. It's still very fragmented here. We don't have Instacart.
Oh wow! Well, just wait for it because it's a great app. But so they finally established they're going to IPO with a great symbol, CART, which I love the symbol for, and that is the tentative date is September 19th. So we're very excited that they're finally starting to IPO again, because the IPO market has been in a drought for a while. So we're gonna be watching that. But the price point of it, they said between $26 and $29 is where they are, and that valuation is down significantly from before when they were going to IPO. I think the valuation is about a quarter of what it used to be. So that'll give us something. Hopefully there'll be something to trade there. But yes, it's exciting news this week.
Let's just tell our viewers quickly that haven't used this app, what does it do for you compared to if you went to, for example, Walgreens directly? What does it give you?
Okay, I use it too much. I feel like I should confess that, but I used it yesterday. So I had a house full of people here, and I ordered from Instacart all the stuff that I needed to barbecue, everything, and it just shows up. So I ordered everything in bulk from Costco, and it showed up at my door.
Great.
It's the easy. Yes.
We'll watch this space. I'll let you know when it arrives here. Now, on the currency markets, another dollar cross we are looking at is dollar yen. Bank of Japan Governor Kazuo Ueda recently fueling hopes that Japan could soon move away from negative rates. Just looking at the cross here for you, Ueda told Yomiuri newspaper that by year end, the Bank of Japan could have enough data to determine whether or not it can end negative rates. Now, this pushed the yen up against all major currencies. Just showing you an hourly chart there. As you can see, this is against the dollar. But as I said earlier, the news pushed the yen up against all major currencies. Traders have been on high alert for any signs of intervention from Japan to shore up the currency. Well, earlier, Daily FX's market analyst Zane Vauder believes that the governor's comments will only have a short-term effect.
The Japanese yen continues to intrigue and surprise, putting in gains across the board this morning. This largely down to comments by BOJ Governor Ueda over the weekend, where the governor stressed that the BOJ is ready to end negative rates should the inflation target of 2% be reached. I think there is a lot of truth in this, as this governor was brought in with the view to normalize policy, but given the insistence by the BOJ that they would like to see a sustained drop in inflation as well as an increase in wage growth that exceeds inflation, I think it is a bit premature to expect changes anytime soon. At the moment, it would appear that the governor is using these sound bites or comments as a subtle form of FX intervention to keep the yen supported, even if it turns out to be temporary in nature. I do expect yen losses to continue moving forward, with a retest of the 150 handle on USD Japanese yen likely to sway the BOJ into direct FX intervention. This is something that we have heard from fellow BOJ members as well as former policymakers of the BOJ, so something to definitely keep an eye on moving forward.
Thanks very much, Zane. Now, other than the yen, the dollar is also a likely mover against the euro later this week, depending on the ECB rate decision outcome. Having already raised its main refinancing rate from its 0% last summer to 4.25% at its last meeting, has it beaten the biggest surge in inflation for a generation, or does it need to go just one more time to be sure? Now, doubts over whether the central bank will raise rates for the 10th consecutive time have intensified amid widespread signs of an impending economic downturn, including weaker business confidence and falling German industrial production. But this would be outside the main remit of the ECB, which is to keep a lid on inflation. Derivatives markets pricing in about a 35% chance of the ECB raising rates on Thursday. Refinancing rates should therefore remain at 4.25%. No change either for the deposit facility rate and marginal lending rate, forecast respectively at 3.75% and 4.5%. Most economists now expecting the ECB to include a weaker outlook for growth and a slight increase in its inflation expectations for this year and next year. Now, one of the stocks we are watching for you, Oracle, out with results after the close. Analysts estimating EPS at $1.14 on sales of $12.45 billion, which would represent an increase of 8.8% on a year-on-year basis. Two things to watch: accelerated digital transformation, along with the continuation of remote work and mainstream adoption of the hybrid flexible work model, is expected to have driven demand for Oracle Cloud infrastructure services. Number two, investors want to see how the acquisition of Cerner in 2022 has bolstered the company's position in the lucrative healthcare domain. Just wanting to watch Qualcomm and keep an eye on Apple for you as well, because these are all session stocks on the IG platform. Qualcomm out with news that will supply Apple with 5G chips until 2026. Under a new deal. Now, this is quite significant. Let's have a look to see whether we've had any sort of reaction. There you go. This is the hourly chart for you. Qualcomm is, of course, a leading designer of what's known as modem chips that connect your phone to mobile data networks. Neither side, though, have disclosed how much this deal is worth. Just checking in on Apple for you as well, because Apple, as I mentioned earlier, one that we're keeping a close eye on for you, not just because of this story, but also because we are waiting on that key event out of California, where Apple is expected to unveil not just rebranding, but also its latest products. And just to commodities now, we are watching oil prices for you. Here's a look at the Brent, because it has been a really volatile time for both Brent and WTI. Let's just take a look at the daily chart for you. It has started easing off now, as you can see there, after the Saudi moves recently. On Friday, the Baker Hughes rig oil count rose by 1 to 632, oil rig count rather. This total count includes oil rigs, gas rigs, and rigs in the Permian Basin. Oil rigs climbed to 1 to 513 so far this year. Active drilling rigs are down 147. And perhaps more significantly, this latest count is 443 fewer rigs than just before the pandemic. And just a quick recap, as you heard Liz say earlier on, the Instacart IPO is what's moving and shaking in the IPO market. It's offering 22 million shares, shares priced between 26 and 28 bucks each. And this means the company is eyeing a valuation of $7.7 billion. Big news as well, because this market has, as Liz mentioned earlier, suffered a drought, but it looks like more interest is coming back, flooding back into this market now, given all the mention of the R-word recession that we heard in the first half have somewhat dissipated. Chevron, also another key one that we were following last week and also earlier this week as well. Chevron now has said it is not betting on talks to lead to any sort of resolution. The big bet now is that because they don't see a deal, Chevron will apply to the Fair Work Commission to see whether it can get an outcome. Australia is, of course, the world's biggest exporter of LNG, and production from both of Chevron's facilities, according to a Chevron spokesperson, are still ongoing in Australia. However, the bottom line is there are no further talks lined up, and also Chevron is not expecting any breakthrough in talks as well. And just keeping an eye on something that's just crossed the headlines, aerospace supplier RTX saying it will take a nearly $3 billion pre-tax charge in the third quarter due to quality issues at its Pratt and Whitney engines. This is the ETF engines, I might add. Also want to check in on Tesla and all session stock here on IG, because Tesla is moving some 6%. Let's take a look at the hourly chart for you. There we go. That big spike up there. It's moving because Morgan Stanley has upgraded the EV maker to overweight from equal weight, citing potential growth in its market value from Dojo, the firm's supercomputer. And that's it for this edition of Beat the Street, the show that follows all the trading action, helping you position yourself ahead of the opening bell. For more trading insight, do follow me on @IGCom and @Angeline Ong on Twitter. This is IGTV.